to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today we embark on a journey of a series which I have nomenclatured as Saturdays with Singhvi. This will be a series of conversations on important topics with eminent jurist, three-time sitting member of Parliament, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, and somebody who has deep social impact, whose work has had deep social impact across the country over the past many years. The industrialists know him as a top counsel in the Supreme Court. Many say the numero uno in the country. Parliamentarians know him as someone who has opened numerous debates in Parliament. And of course, there is a political facet to his personality, a social facet to his personality. We'll explore all of that. And one topic every alternate week on which he will delve into at length with us. May I welcome Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi on Saturdays with Singhvi. Welcome, sir, on this new initiative and new series that you have kindly agreed to, in a sense, spare your time with us every alternate week.
Well, let me compliment you on the alliteration which you have found. Saturdays with Singhvi, I think didn't strike me. You've got some nice alliteration there.
So, my first question to you would be, you cram so much into one life, one single life. There is a legislative facet to your personality. There is a whole work that you do as an eminent jurist of India, be it in the courts or otherwise. You are a spokesperson of a national party, the Indian National Congress. How do you manage to juggle these three equally engaging assignments in one single life?
Well, Tarun, you are right. I've been privileged in being an insider or an insider-outsider combination in all the three organs of governance. As you put it, the legislature, the executive, in a sense, having been the spokesperson earlier of the ruling party and now the main opposition, and of course the courts and the judiciary. So I always joke now, this is something I said almost 20 years ago, that multitasking has been the joy of my life. It has also been the bane of my life, because the learning curve is great in multitasking. The diversity is humongous. The enjoyment consequently is also in proportion very great. But equally the tensions and the fact that you just cannot do everything in a day. So the difference between me as an older Singhvi and a younger Singhvi, because I've been doing this multitasking, I think, for decades. As I said, it's been a blessing and it's been a curse in my life. And I have taken both as it comes. The main difference is that I used to get very agitated when I could not do each sub-item of that multitasking list. Or I used to be in a lot of tension. Now, I take it as it comes. I still do a lot of multitasking, the very nature of my work, straddling at least three spheres, apart from the personal and, writing articles and also apart from traveling and all that. So it does pack, as Rudyard Kipling said, a full 60 seconds into every minute of work run. But then I do not allow the tension to get to me to the extent possible. I try my best. I do what I can. I strive for it, but when I can't reach, when I can't do, I don't regret as much as I used to do earlier. And I think that mental attitude is vital because obviously I do a lot of it because I enjoy doing it. And, the old days, it was very common that one would start the day with this frenzy of court cases, running from court to court, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 12 o'clock. And then you'd find me rushing to the car and changing my jacket in the car and opening a debate, or rather replying to, because those days the Congress was in power. So the party in power always responds, doesn't open the debate. So Jetli, who had likewise run away from the court a little earlier than me, would open the debate and I would reply to it, or Arun Shuri, or even a Venkaiah Naidu, etc. And then in the evening, do a press conference. Now, those were heady days. Those were younger days. And I think it's certainly not good for health to do it all your life. But as I said, I take what comes now. I do still a lot of that kind of work in a single day. But then I do it at a pace which suits me and I don't get hassled to the extent I can manage and not being able to do too much.
I have a very interesting question which I myself want to know from you. There is a joke in Parliament that every term you don't see at least more than half of the people you see in one single term. So for them, Parliament is something that they come to for 5 or 6 years in their entire life. You are among the rarities. Who is a third time sitting member of Parliament? If I'm not wrong, by now you would have spent more than 14 years, 14 or close to 15. So the wealth of experience of the working of parliamentary committees that you may be having would be rare in this country to find. Given your contribution to those committees by the virtue of being a lawyer, an eminent lawyer, and also now doing lawmaking for the past 15 years, it is said most of the work happens in parliamentary committees. More than in Parliament, it's the committees that do most of the work. Could you, in a few minutes, share with us your experiences of this work that you've had the opportunity to do?
You're absolutely right. And this is very misleading, it's unfortunate, quite frankly. The impression of Parliament and parliamentarians is what you get on television. You know it, I know it. There is always more of sensationalism, less of sense, more of disruption, more of hatapai, more of shouting. And the general public perception is this is Parliament. Let me tell you, I was privileged to be chair of a parliamentary standing committee more than 10 years ago, 2011. That's a long time ago. That was my fifth year in Parliament. And I was chair of a standing committee which had the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Law and Justice, which is an extremely important and a major committee. I had at that time the remit of, among others, controversial, extremely contentious matters like Lokpal Bill. Now, let me very quickly share with you. Number one, the old saying is absolutely correct. Parliament in committee is Parliament at work. You can put it in reverse also. Parliament at work is Parliament in committee. Number two, these parliamentary committees, as some people don't know, are mini parliaments. They are a microcosm that the members are in the same proportion as their strength in the House. So they're actually genuine mini parliaments. Thirdly, they exhibit rare unanimity, rare consensus, rare convergence. I will give an example of Lokpal, which is the most extreme example, the most contentious topic. We had 31 odd members, and we had stalwarts. When I was chairing that committee, we had stalwarts at that time, including Ram, Jethmalani, Laluji, Paswanji. They're not easy people to handle. They're all people with difficult. Of course, Jetli was there for a while. Pinaki Mishra was there. So many more names. Now, despite that, and despite a lot of different issues, in Lokpal, I identified 25 issues. I opened the parliamentary NXE on 3 successive weekends because we had to report. We examined more than some 250 hours of committee. All the Anna Hazare movement people, every one of them, including Prashant Bhushan, all the others came and gave depots before us, minus Mr. Anna Hazare himself. He did not come. Then we examined all the reports. And we reported in 5 months. So I opened the parliamentary NXE and sat there for 3 consecutive weekends and dictated. Now we identified 25 issues. You'll be astonished in a fractious issue like that. There were 22 issues of 100% unanimity of 31 members. On 3 issues, there were dissent notes. Of course, what happens when the thing goes into parliament is that the same people on instructions of party sometimes say, in fact, to be very honest, to share with you several such anecdotes, they came to me and said, sir, we have signed unanimously. Now when the debate is on in Parliament later on, we have got instructions from our party to differ. But the amount of work which goes on, and I'm giving an example of Lokpal. It is true of so many others. And the day we make them partisan, they are largely bipartisan till today. Of course, the degree of partisanship has increased. I'm not talking of this government or that government. Each year, the degree of partisanship and divisiveness increases. It was much better in my times. But the day we take this further, and let me add one thing. One of the reasons is that the glare of media lights, the glare of people like you is not there in the committee. There's a big debate whether we should have cameras inside the house. We now have it. In a sense, we welcome it. That is in the name of transparency. But I am of the view that the day you have the same thing in committee, it's the beginning of the end of hard work. It's the beginning of the end of bipartisanship. Because people tend to play to the galleries. People tend to play to their constituents. People tend to play to those political masters they may be wanting to impress. So I think this is an essence that you should allow parliamentary committees to broadly work as they are. And I have great faith in them. I am now in the Home Standing Committee. I've been in lots of others, urban affairs, etc. And in all of them, compared to what you see in Parliament, excellent quality reports. And I would commend to you to read the Parliamentary Standing Committee report on Lokpal Bill.
Lokpal Bill.
So, and this is one example I'm giving because I was chair of that, but there are so many. They have a lot of hard work, wisdom, material. They are research projects. And I think we tend to belittle them because we tend to get overawed by the overall impression where Parliament can be fractious and can be divisive.
Now, I want to understand from you your experience of debates in Parliament. Of course, we know the kind of debates that go on, but more often than not, you find somebody speaking and making a fine set of good points. You yourself have done so. Could you share your experience of debates in Parliament, which you fondly remember?
I'll try to be as brief as possible, but this requires some detail, and I'll tell you the names of the debates also shortly. First and foremost, Tarun, I was privileged to have opened almost, I mean, obviously not every, but a large number of the major debates for the ruling party from 2006 when I entered Parliament till about 2013-14, when obviously the ruling party became the opposition. So I opened those debates. Those include, by the way, and this is, of course, an interesting exception, the Lokpal itself, because normally the chair of the parliamentary committee which reports on it does not open the debate in Parliament. An exception was made because I was so familiar with the subject. But much before that, in my first, second year, in fact, my maiden speech was on Office of Profit. That was the Office of Profit bill on which Mrs. Sonia Gandhi resigned and went back and sought a mandate from Rai Bareli. So then, of course, Augusta. The most important was when there were two debates and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh did me the honor of asking me to open the debate on 123 nuclear twice. It came twice. Now, these were momentous. Then, of course, apart from there has been recently in the NCT bill by which certain changes have been made, or internal security when Pranab Da was the Home Minister and later on when Chidambaram was the Home Minister, etc. So the point I'm making about debate is, media has no time for reporting the good debates which take place, the content. What do you have? You have one section of one page where all the debates, so 10, 15 people spoke, you have got that fixed, whatever, 200 words, 400 words, where it is reported. The debate on food security between 2 and 4 p.m. may not have more than 40, 50 members in the House. The press has no place for it to report next day. But I tell you, if you or your children are made to sit there and take notes, it's an education. Because there is today also, and it is nothing to do with formal education. There are members out there, either they are very qualified or they have the great qualification, even bigger than anything else, of experience. So some chap, I'm always surprised. You're sitting quietly, one lazy, and the joke is that Parliament is the best place to sit sometimes in the afternoon in hot Indian summers. It's the coolest place. So you sometimes go and seek refuge there and you see an outstanding speech with hardly any members in the House by somebody who has seen the grassroots of agriculture. He'll have some gems which will be educative for you. These are things which don't get reported. So your impression is wrong. And also, I think it pays dividends to be disruptive and grandstand and shout because that gets captured on the cameras. Today, if I give a serious speech, it hardly gets captured or it gets in your bites. And then there is, there's 2 sentences in a 10-speaker report of 400 words in a newspaper. So I think here, the country collectively, and now of course we have channels. We now have Sansad, the earlier Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha separate channels. They dedicate large parts of the day to it. I wish, I don't want to sound mandatory, but I wish some of our students were mandatorily made to watch at least once in a month some debate with prior, because some of them can be gems of, and there is research, there is experiential thing, there is rhetoric, there is quotation, and there is a spin which is very different from what you might think. So I'm a great believer in this, but unfortunately, the exception gets expanded, not the rule.
Thank you for sharing this, Vachad. I think a lot of students will look forward to doing this. I think not only students, but professionals and elders also will want to go and look up the speeches and the debates made. The one thing I'm wondering is, under the new format of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha together, can people simultaneously see both, or how will they manage to air? But that's for another day, because it's now only one single channel. Or, some people want to watch Lok Sabha when the Rajya Sabha is also going on. So I don't know how will that work. That is an important issue. Dr. Singhvi, there is this, in a sense, practice in Parliament since the past 73 years that you have people from different walks of life, art, culture, people who have contribution in, say, the industry and business. They all have been elevated as Rajya Sabha members. Do you think it is important to have such a bouquet of people? Why do you think it is necessary?
I think you've used the crucial right word, bouquet. Call it salad bowl, doesn't matter. But you must have that diversity. You see, there is obviously a political element in your entry into the lower or the upper house. Has to be. There is a regional element. There is a geographical element. There is an aspirational caste, or call it class-based element. Has to be. It's being unreal to say, oh, we don't look at caste, we don't look at geographies or regions. That's all right. But everything doesn't have to be based on that. Take the Rajya Sabha, for instance. Lateral entries based on individual talent and expertise is one of the objects of creating the upper house, or for that matter, the upper house in any other state legislature also. Now, there is an interesting episode where one of our close friends, I won't name him, from the left parties, gave a speech, an impressive speech in Parliament, many, many decades ago, early on in the first, second, third year when I had entered, as to why chartered accountants, engineers, lawyers, doctors, these people should not be there in the Rajya Sabha, because they are otherwise gainfully employed and very busy, and they are not full-time, etc., etc. And he made a lot of valid points. When Jetli and I were walking out of the house, we met him in the corridor outside, and he's a good friend. So we told him that it appears that, hearing you just now, it appears that you want not only a house of the unemployed, but a house of the unemployable. And he took it in good spirit. Now, that's another cliched way of conveying my point. The point is that you bring to the table new facets. Now, I certainly don't sit and attend Rajya Sabha generally, but whenever I'm given a responsibility for all these major opening debates, and I had the privilege of opening almost every important debate, as I told you in those days. Nowadays, of course, lesser. But now also, when I'm given, I leave something, looks into it, looks into the subject, and then we spend time opening it. So we bring a facet, and just like that, you, as an architect, will bring a different facet. And the third person, as a medical doctor, brings a different facet. So I think this is to be treasured, not derided. Some of it happens out of ignorance, some of it happens out of jealousy, some of it happens out of lack of, Yes, there is another class of people, and I don't agree there, who are very talented and outstanding, renowned in their fields. But they have passed almost 6 years in the upper house by attending 6 times. I don't agree with that. I think you have to take a call. You certainly are not going to sit there and watch the debates generally, but you must do more than that. You must, in fact, go up front and ask for some speeches. And there have been, mind you, some very eminent names nominated in the nomination category especially, who have not, very talented, very endowed, but not done justice to their endowments or their talents. So that's a different, rare exception. Otherwise, lateral talent, a richer house, a more diverse house, and bringing facets to the table is a good thing, and should continue, and should be, in fact, encouraged and enlarged.
Now, taking this discussion further, in all these years that you've spent at Parliament, could you share with us some of the debates that people who are watching this show can go back to and watch, refer, read about?
Well, I don't want to sound vain, but many of these will repay study, especially for those who want to be in debates generally. I'm not talking of parliamentary debating. for students, or even for the serious scholar who's interested in the legislative history of India. As I said, I have done almost innumerable from 2006 to 13, so I will not list them all. Many of them are worth reading from the books, but also now links are available. The good thing is you have a link. So you can just press the link and see the debate. It's clipped to that person's debate. I would put, as far as my personal opening speeches are concerned, the Lokpal debate as something which would be interesting. The 1-2-3 nuclear deal, twice. First passed and came back again to the House. Those were absolutely new topics. A lot of research went into it, a lot of new facets, and very contentious, very acrimonious. The Office of Profit again came twice. That was the early days after I'd entered. Then the Augusta, Westland, another very controversial debate more recently, and so on and so forth. These 4 or 5, I would say in particular. And I think these are useful from a mixture of students of constitutional law, students of politics, students of mere debating skills. I still remember it brought, it made my hair stand and then brought tears to my eyes. After my Lokpal speech, people just spontaneously crossed the floor. We were in the ruling party then, and came and congratulated me openly in the House. Any number of non-Congress people. So there is this bipartisan appreciation, and this is what democratic structures like the Temple of Democracy in Parliament is supposed to be. It happened. It's on camera. You can check it up.
For the fact that you've had this opportunity to contribute to nation building via Parliament in all these years, when you look back at your life and look back at the work that you have done at Parliament, is there any feeling that you get, sometimes you reflect on life? What are these feelings that you get when you reflect on the work that you've been able to do?
See, first, let me talk institutionally. I think there is obviously a tinge of regret and sadness as the years go by. And the reason is simple. I have a very firm, genuine belief. I've written about it. I've spoken about it. I'm only repeating myself so that it's on record yet again. What is the strength of India? What is the strength of Indian democracy? What is the strength of Indian Parliament? We should never lose sight of that for narrow political petty gains. The strength is that we have magnanimity, large-heartedness. We have had people who have openly, very, very aggressively and openly deferred. The Nehru and the Pilu Modi and the Bhupesh Gupta, the Najpais, for that matter, my father when he was earlier there. But there was a bipartisan touch where you did not carry this with you outside the hall. You did not think of revenge. You did not think of backstabbing. You did not think of hurt and, vendetta. When you sit in Central Hall, 6 different parties bitterly opposed to each other, 6 of their individuals sit in the first and second row, and over cups of coffee, every possible gossip would be discussed. Now tell me one thing, Tarun. Can you do that with the 2 ladies in Bangladesh in their Central Hall?
No.
Can you do it with the Zia-ul Haqs and the Nawaz Sharifs of Pakistan?
No.
Can you, for that matter, even do it in Sri Lanka? Answer is no. You have been doing it till now. I would say even now, but now in a little bit more hushed tones. Why? That is the strength of Indian democracy. The strength of Indian democracy is epitomized by Vajpayee. So I think these are things which we must treasure. And I always feel a little sad when I find that diminished in individual episodes. That is really the crux. And as long as you protect that, everything will fall in place. It's the viciousness has to be there. I remember my father was, because he was a philosopher, he was a poet, he was more a writer, he was a bipartisan man, but he shared much of his literary interest with Vajpayee ji, and he did many projects with him. So he asked him to join the Rajya Sabha for the BJP towards the later part of his life. And at that time, I was an active spokesperson for the Congress. And when I would attend a function at Panchvati in the PMO's house, official function, I'm by nature, contrary to what you might think, very introvert and shy and retiring. So I'd go to the periphery of the gathering and not go and up to. And Vajpayee ji would call out from that and saying, बादशाह जी आप दिन भर तो हमको अटैक करते हैं, आज आँख क्यों चुरा रहे हैं, अभी आँख क्यों चुरा रहे हैं? Now this is a certain quality. I remember this quality also in Bhairav Singh Ji Shekhawat from my home state. There is an enveloping large-heartedness. It might not mean much, but this is the essence of democracy. And we have to keep that flame alive and treasure it.
You've said too much in two little words of what a mature democracy and how parliamentarians who are in a sense the repositories of intelligence of all Indians. You take the nation forward for us. The debate shows us the way. The bills that turns into law, that then governs the country. The Food Security Act, of course, there are many other bills. So we draw this first part or part one episode of Saturdays with Singhvi to a close. We look forward to feedback from our viewers and look forward to many more engaging debates with you, sir, so that people benefit, parliamentarians benefit, the community benefits from what you have experienced and what you can contribute. And of course, via this show, what you can communicate will also be of help to a lot of people. But today's discussion was indeed a learning experience. And I think the perfect way to begin this series, nomenclatured as Saturdays with Singhvi. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tarun. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.